Marking his first full month in office, President Yuja reflected on the past month, which he recognized as a period has been devoted to revitalizing people's livelihoods. He also pledged the utmost investment in future industries like AI and the realization of pragmatic diplomacy rooted in national interest. Also on Thursday, the National Assembly approved four-term lawmaker Kim Min-seok as the country's new prime minister. While the main opposition People Power Party boycotted the vote, Kim will take on the role as the nation's 49th prime minister and the first under the Lee administration. Outbound shipments of agricultural and food products from South Korea hit an all-time high in the first half of the year on the back of the growing popularity of K-culture. Korean ramen led the record-high export, and exports of Korean sauce like gochujang also went up. President Lee Jae-myung held a press conference today marking 1 month in office. Topics covered were a wide range of issues, including the economy, North Korea, and foreign policy. When it comes to trade talks with the U.S., the president said it's not easy, though he says he's making utmost efforts. On foreign policy, our top office correspondent Yoon Min reports.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung was mindful of trade negotiations with the U.S. during Thursday's press conference, marking 30 days in office. When asked, he said one thing that he could say for sure was that it's not easy.
지금 그렇다고 해서 7월 8일까지 끝낼 수 있는지도 확언하기 어려워요. 지금 최선을 다하고 있습니다. 최선을 다하고 있고 또 쌍방의 모두에게 도움이 되는 그야말로 호혜적인 그런 결과를 만들어내야 하는데 아직까지도 쌍방이 정확하게 뭘 원하는지가 명확하게 정리되지는 못한 상태입니다.
This as the deadline for talks to cut the 25% reciprocal tariffs imposed by the Trump administration is less than a week away. He went on to say that his government is looking for topics in many different fields as he revisited his principle of pragmatic diplomacy for national interests. On North Korea, the commander-in-chief vowed to improve relations with Pyongyang based on the South Korea-U.S. alliance, as well as the three-way cooperation with Japan, urging the importance of dialogue and communication.
대화를 전면 단절하는 건 그건 정말 바보 짓이죠. 미워도 얘기를 들어야 되거든요. 그리고 협상하고 정치나 외교에서는 감정을 배제해야 된다.
He added that North Korea's response was quick and better than he had expected to South Korea halting loudspeaker broadcasts 1 week after Lee took office in June. On South Korea's relationship with Japan,
이런 갈등 요소도 있긴 합니다만 저는 이 두 가지를 뒤섞을 필요는 없다고 생각해요. 그 문제는 그 문제대로. 말씀드렸던 것처럼 전쟁 중에도 외교는 한다, 대화는 한다, 협력할 건 한다.
He was referring to long-standing controversies between the two neighbors stemming from Japan's colonization of the Korean peninsula from 1910 to 1945, as well as territorial issues. Still, he says he sees a lot of areas to work together with Tokyo, including tackling North Korea's nuclear and missile programs, on top of the economic cooperation. President Lee, who's just 1 month in office, did not forget to mention his recent visit to the G7 summit, which he called an official announcement signaling Korea's return to global summit diplomacy. Yoon Min, Arirang News.
During today's press conference, President Lee Jae-myung has also laid out his vision for major domestic issues, focusing on improving livelihoods and promoting unity. Our Presidential Office correspondent Song Yoo-jin has more.
Helping people get back on their feet will continue to be South Korean President Lee Jae-myung's #1 priority. Even on day one, President Lee issued his first executive order to establish an emergency economic task force. The supplementary budget proposal, worth 30.5 trillion won, or roughly $22.4 billion, is also part of those efforts. When asked about the impact of the universal cash handouts, President Lee said they'll act as a priming pump for the economy.
소비 진작 더하기, 소득 지원 효과도 있죠. 서민들이 너무 먹고 살기 어렵잖아요. 당장 떼거리가 불안한 사람한테 15만 원은 아니 50만 원은 정말 엄청나게 큰 돈이죠. 효과는 일반적으로 평가되는 것보다 높을 거다라고 생각합니다.
Another area of focus was balanced development between the capital region and the rest of the country, which the president says is essential to Korea's long-term growth.
제가 국무회의에서 이런 지시를 해놨어요. 아예 정부가 정책을 결정하거나 또는 예산을 배정하거나 할 때 지역별로 일종의 가중치 표를 만들어 달라. 예를 들면 수도권에서의 거리, 아니면 지방 대도시에서의 거리.
Other growth drivers highlighted by the president included investment in AI, semiconductors, and renewable energy. He also pledged to pave the way for the Kospi to reach 5,000 by making the capital market fairer and more reliable. On housing, following the recent tightening of housing loan regulations, he signaled that additional real estate measures are on the way, combining expanded supply with demand controls to stabilize prices. Communication and unity were also recurring themes, especially across political lines. President Lee described differing views as an uncomfortable but necessary source of synergy.
대한민국 전체를 대표하는 대통령의 직무를 수행하기 때문에 실제로 우리 국민들이 하나로 모일 수 있는 통합의 국정을 해야 합니다. 그리고 마음에 드는 또는 색깔이 같은 쪽만 쭉 쓰면은 위험하죠.
That comment appears to address criticism surrounding his decision to retain Agriculture Minister Song Mi-ryong and appoint another prosecutor-turned-senior secretary for civil affairs who lead the prosecution reform. Regarding cooperation with the opposition, the president said he is open to meeting frequently and as needed. Thursday's press conference itself, held under the themes of closer, broader, anew, reflected Lee's commitment to engagement. It invited not only the presidential press corps and foreign correspondents, but also grassroots media outlets. Reporters sat close to the president without a podium.
And President Lee didn't forget the public, promising they'll remain at the center of policymaking. He said he will listen to what they have to say through direct channels, such as the recently launched People's Mailbox, and town hall-style gatherings, such as the one in Gwangju last week. 송유진, Arirang News.
President Yuja has also held his first phone call with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, during which they agreed to bolster cooperation in the defense industry. That is, according to his spokesperson Kang Yoo-jung on Thursday, who said their discussion included deepening Seoul's partnership with NATO. Rutte congratulated Lee on his inauguration and thanked him for showing South Korea's willingness to cooperate with NATO via the attendance of Lee's national security advisor at the NATO summit last week, though he said he had hoped to have seen him in person. National Security Advisor Wi Sung-rak attended the summit in Hague on behalf of the president. President Lee reportedly vowed to continue strengthening Korea's partnership with NATO amid multi-layered global crises. Also today, Parliament approved Kim Min-seok as the country's new prime minister, with the ruling party unilaterally pushing through the motion amid a boycott by the main opposition. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
Four-term lawmaker Kim Min-seok has finally been given the green light to take the post of prime minister 29 days after being nominated by President Lee Jae-myung.
I'll respect the will of the people, put the president's vision into action, and bring together the wisdom of lawmakers across party lines in managing state affairs. My top priority is overcoming the economic crisis caused by the forces of tyranny.
This comes after the National Assembly approved his appointment on Thursday to the only cabinet post in South Korea that requires parliamentary approval. Of the 179 votes cast, 173 lawmakers voted in favor, 3 voted against, and 3 ballots were invalid. The ruling Democratic Party, which holds a majority in the 22nd National Assembly, pushed the motion through unilaterally amid a boycott by the main opposition People Power Party.
Given the current crisis, it's a shame that the PPP continues to obstruct the process. If the confirmation of the Prime Minister, who is supposed to lead the cabinet, is delayed any further, the public won't stand for it.
Ahead of the plenary session, the PPP demanded Kim's withdrawal, calling him an unqualified nominee, citing his failure to submit key documents, particularly those related to his wealth.
There hasn't been a Prime Minister nominee with this many issues before. Once again, we urge President Lee Jae-myung, it's not too late. Withdraw Kim Min-seok's nomination.
The presidential office welcomed the approval, saying that it paves the way for Prime Minister Kim to work closely with President Lee and help him run state affairs smoothly. Meanwhile, despite the standoff over Kim's appointment, the parliament passed a revision of the Commercial Act during Thursday's plenary session, following an agreement reached the previous day. Among 272 lawmakers present, 220 voted in favor, 29 voted against, and 23 abstained. This was one of the contentious bills the two sides have been clashing over. The DP had pushed a revision to the act back in March, but it was vetoed by the previous administration. The revision aims to add the word shareholders to the director's duties from just company. It also introduces the so-called 3% rule, which caps the voting rights of the largest shareholder and related parties at 3% when appointing audit committee members at listed companies. The rule is intended to prevent undue influence and abuse of control by majority shareholders. This marks the first passage of a bill related to the people's livelihoods and the first time the rival parties have reached a bipartisan agreement on legislation since President Lee took office. 신하영, Arirang News.
Rebooting the country's economy and restoring people's livelihoods have been the South Korean president's #1 tasks during his first month in office. We look back on the Lee administration's economic policies and what to look forward to in the months to come with our economics correspondent Moon Ji-young. Hello, Ji-young.
Good evening, Dami.
So, Ji-young, President Lee couldn't stress enough how crucial reviving the country's economy is during the 2-hour conference, could he?
Yes, as you mentioned, President Lee has described the current state of people's livelihoods as being collapsed. Lee, in his first administrative order, launched an emergency economic task force aimed at making economic recovery the top priority. To understand why such an emphasis is put on livelihood recovery, we can first look at key economic indicators, starting with inflation. In June, consumer prices rose more than 2% year-on-year. Notably, the primary drivers were increases in fuel and food prices, directly impacting the daily lives of ordinary citizens. Secondly, the economic outlook paints a challenging picture. For this, let's hear directly from an expert.
Well, the growth rate this year is only expected to be 0.8% by the Bank of Korea. And a lot of international investment banks are predicting that it'll actually be worse. Some are predicting that the growth rate will only be 0.3%. The two main pillars of Korean economy is exports and domestic consumption, and both seems to be down very much this year.
Household debt remains a substantial concern as well. The scale of household loan growth, especially mortgage loans, is expanding. This is intertwined with the real estate market situation, especially in the Seoul area, which recently saw huge price increases. In response, the government announced new loan regulations, primarily targeting the Seoul area, where all local lenders will be forced to sharply lower their household lending.
Right, Jiyoung. Now, we also have to talk about the e-government's extra budget, the supplementary budget, which is, designed to reboot the country's economy from, consumption to investment. Tell us more.
Yes, Tammy, Lee has repeatedly stated that the supplementary budget will create a multiplier effect in the economy. The government is aiming to distribute financial support quickly to stimulate consumption and investment. According to economic experts, this approach has specific goals and expectations.
The government is hoping that the supplementary budget, which originally planned to distribute about 20 trillion won, would pull the economy up by 0.2 percentage points. That is perhaps not as efficient as government spending on SOC investment or direct government purchases, but right now the government feels that that's the fastest way that we can pick up consumption and investment in the economy.
And Jiyoung, what was also echoed during the press conference today was President Lee's commitment to realizing the KOSPI 5,000 era. Let's talk about that.
President Lee aims to transform the Korea discount into a Korea premium, setting a target for KOSPI at 5,000. He envisions an investment-friendly environment where market funds flow into productive sectors, fostering a virtuous economic cycle and increasing national wealth. The policy is expected to create a more robust capital market, driving industry growth and overall economic prosperity.
So making people's lives better, stabilizing the markets, both homes and financial markets. Now, what about the investing? His commitment to invest in a more future-oriented industries like AI. Why are these industries so crucial now?
They are so crucial right now. He is committed to investing in advanced tech industries, including AI and semiconductors. These are sectors already garnering significant attention as core components for cutting-edge products and emerging industries, even prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. During the pandemic, a chip shortage halted car production, and since then, many nations have focused on fostering chips for economic security and supply chain stability. This crisis profoundly underscored the strategic importance of semiconductors. Let's take a listen to what an expert needs to say.
As many countries aggressively pursue semiconductor development, competitive investment is surging. If we don't continue our investment, we risk falling behind, especially since nations like the USA and Japan are attracting foreign companies with direct subsidies.
Moreover, AI technology has emerged as a new innovation set to completely transform our lives. With South Korea yet to secure leading technologies in this field, it is crucial for the country to focus on it to avoid falling behind.
Well, Jiyoung, our colleague Yoon Jung-min reported earlier that President Lee himself is well aware that tariff negotiations with Washington are really hard to predict. Is that correct?
Yes, regarding tariff, Lee has said that the government has made utmost efforts on tariff negotiations. But he can't say whether the talks could be concluded by July 8th, the deadline set by U.S. President Donald Trump. With these ongoing tariff talks, uncertainties surrounding the Korean economy still persist and will require close monitoring.
Indeed, we are just 1 month into the Lee Jae-myung administration. Let's keep an eye out if there'll be any last-minute negotiations with the U.S. Jiyoung, thank you for the wrap-up today.
Thank you for having me.
The entire nation continues to be trapped in extreme heat this week, with the summer's monsoon season being a rather dry one. In fact, the rainy season is already over down on Jeju Island in the southern regions. Our An Sung-jin has more.
South Korea remains in the grip of a heat wave. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, heat wave advisories were issued across the country on Thursday, with morning lows ranging from 23 to 28 degrees and the daytime high reaching up to 37 degrees in some areas. As hot and humid conditions persist, the feel-like temperatures are expected to hover above 33 degrees in most parts of the country. With temperatures remaining over 25 degrees throughout the night as well, the capital Seoul has continued to see tropical nights since the first one of the year on June 29th. As the country continues to suffer, the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency stated that the number of those reported with heat-related illnesses reached 524 from May 15th till the 1st of July. The figure is 1.34 times more than the same period from last year. Health authorities are urging the public to take precautions by making sure to rest in cool environments and limit outdoor activities. Meanwhile, the rainy season has come to an early end. The KMA has announced that the monsoon season has officially ended on Jeju Island and in the southern regions, marking one of the earliest on record. As the North Pacific high air pressure system pushed the monsoon stationary front northwest, Jeju left the effective range on June 26th, and the southern regions have been out of the area of monsoon influence since Tuesday. For Jeju, it has been the earliest monsoon season ending since nationwide weather monitoring began in 1973, while for southern areas it marked the second earliest. In terms of the monsoon period, both Jeju and the southern regions were the second shortest on record, lasting 15 and 13 days consecutively. However, the KMA said it's still too early to declare the end of the monsoon season in other regions, as a weakened stationary front near North Korea may temporarily affect the area. Rain is forecast for this week, though precipitation is expected to remain light. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Agricultural and food products exported from South Korea came to a record high in the first half of the year, thanks to a growing popularity of Korean food like ramen and also hot sauces like gochujang and samjang. Our correspondent Park Junan has the details.
South Korea's K-Food Plus exports, which combine agricultural products and agro-industrial goods, reached an all-time high in the first half of 2025, according to the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, and Rural Affairs. The total export value hit $6.67 billion, which is around 9 trillion won, a notable increase of 7.1% from the same period last year, driven by strong global demand for Korean food products. By region, North America was a standout market, with exports reaching $1.03 billion, a 24.3% increase from a year earlier. The European Union and the UK followed closely, with exports to these countries rising 23.9% to $420 million. Exports to the Commonwealth of Independent States, including Mongolia, climbed 9% to $240 million, while shipments to Gulf Cooperation Council countries rose 17.8% to $180 million. Although the first quarter outperformed the second overall, key markets such as the US, China, and Japan saw stronger growth in the second quarter, with shipments to the US standing out. Among processed foods, ramen was a major export driver, reaching $730 million in sales. Spicy ramen and new product launches resonated with global consumers, especially in markets like the Commonwealth of Independent States, China, and the US. Sauce exports grew 18%, totaling $220 million in gochujang, samjang, and other sauces, reflecting the rising global awareness of Korean foods. The Agriculture Ministry said its plan is to reach $14 billion worth of overseas shipments by the end of the year.
We must expand the export base by promoting product development at the corporate level and creating new agricultural products. It's also crucial to identify and address challenges Korean exporters face in the U.S. and other alternative markets through coordinated government efforts.
Amid global trade uncertainties, the ministry added that it will actively support exporters through overseas online and offline promotions, consulting on tariffs and non-tariff barriers, and responding to export risks such as currency fluctuations and logistical issues. 박준환, Arirang News.
A supertropical night phenomenon in which night temperatures do not fall below 30 degrees Celsius has appeared for the second consecutive night in Gangneung last night. There are many areas where tropical nights appear all night around the East Coast and inland areas. With heatwave warnings and advisories in place in most parts of the country, the temperature in Seoul rose up to 32 degrees and it reached 37 degrees in Miryang during the day today. This heat wave will continue for more than a week. It will get hotter with Seoul rising up to 34 degrees in the middle of next week. Tomorrow morning will start warm across the country at around 25 degrees. Daily highs will go up to 31 degrees in Seoul, 33 degrees in Gwangju and Busan. Tomorrow, about 5 to 20 millimeters of rain is forecast in Incheon, northern parts of Gyeonggi-do Province, and western parts of Gangwon-do Province. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.